So I'll be talking about Discovery Kanban. I've got a very simple agenda, 2 parts. First of all, why Discovery Kanban? Essentially, I put that there because I want to make clear that it's not just about having an upstream Kanban board. It's not just about putting sticky notes up to feed your development Kanban. It's quite a bit more. It's about a change, and a fundamental change in terms of running large change programs. So that's the first part. It's a little bit more conceptual than I'd like it to have. So I ask a little bit of your patience. In the second part, we'll become I'll give examples, and it'll become a little bit more or a lot more practical. So I start with the concept of change. To paraphrase Mike Burroughs' word, so not every change is alike, right? In his book, Adaptation Innovation in the Context of Change and Diversity, Mike Curtin describes 2 types of change. One is paradigm consistent change, which is the shallow type of change, right? It's a type of change that doesn't really challenge the prevailing mindset, the prevailing climate of the organization. So it's a shallow type of change. It's a type of change that you might meet resistance, but it's a type of resistance that you can overcome, right? And then there's the paradigm cracking change. It's the more deep type of change. It's the type of change that really challenges the prevailing culture, the prevailing climate, the prevailing mindset of the organization. And it requires a new type of thinking about problems in the organization. So that's the more deep type of change. And it's obviously that type of change that we are interested in, right? We seek the challenges, right? So an example of a paradigm cracking change is the shift in management discipline that can be observed today. Don't know whether that looks familiar to you, but it's the shift in management discipline where the current prevailing discipline of market leaders is being challenged by what you would call market disruptors. It's the change where the discipline of market leaders that mandates kind of an either-or culture, where you can either be excellent at product leadership or excellent at operational excellence or excellent at customer intimacy. It's an either-or. You can't excel at all 3 at the same time. So that's the discipline of market leadership. That's the prevailing discipline that I think dates back from decades now. Yeah? That discipline is being challenged by market disruptors that have more of an and culture. Yeah? It's excellence, period. Yeah? You can have technology innovation, you can have sustaining innovation, you can have efficiency of innovation, you can have disruptive innovation, and it's not a choice. You need to excel at all types of innovation. Yeah? Disruptive organizations are not just disruptive because they're good at disruptive innovation. They're disruptive because they're also good at scaling, at efficiency innovation, for example. Okay, so it's an and culture. It is a paradigm cracking change, in the sense that not all organizations are able to cope with that change. It's the type of organizations that are stuck in a monkey trap. Yeah. So that monkey trap presents itself to large incumbents, that are focused on exploiting an existing value stream through a management system that is really performance-oriented. Yeah? And the monkey trap presents itself as vulnerability to disruption because of the paradigm blinders that those large incumbents are subject to, and because of the massive internal resistance to big changes, right? So that's the monkey trap that these organizations are in. But startups, sometimes we think that startups are better off. Startups are not necessarily better off, yeah, right? They also are sometimes trapped in the monkey trap, in the sense that they are looking at developing, exploring new value streams. But by doing so through entrepreneurship, but by doing so, they can stagnate. They can be vulnerable to stagnation because of, for example, being trapped in early revenue streams, right? Not getting traction. Yeah? So also they have a trouble with that paradigm cracking change. Now, paradigm cracking change is not something new. Yeah? If we go back to Ford, when he introduced the Model T, this was really a paradigm cracking change, yeah? In the sense that he invented a new type of business model, yeah? And with that, a new type of management and production system, right? So actually, what was introduced with the Model T was a commodity market, right? A business model for a commodity market. You can order any color that you want as long as it's a black color, right? And so he did that through the invention of mass production. Okay. Toyota, the paradigm cracking change that Toyota introduced was the change in terms of rather than putting the production system at the center, putting the customer at the center. Deliver what the customer wants when the customer wants it, right? In order to do so, they had to invent lean manufacturing and what is today called lean manufacturing and lean product development. Okay. Today, what we see is organizations, disruptive organizations that take paradigm cracking to the next level, right? They take it to the next level because their business model is actually disruption. Yeah. If I go back to the example of car industry, they're disrupting in the sense that they are redefining transportation in terms of it's not about car ownership, but it is about car as a service. Yeah? Okay? So that takes the notion of change really to the next level in the sense that the business model is really about disruptive change. Yeah? So what this little history illustrates is the innovation cycle. So if you look at Ford took a technology innovation, the combustion engine, standard parts, took a technology innovation, and then by means of efficiency innovation, mass production, turned that into a very successful product, right? Okay. And then Toyota extended that in terms of bringing customer delight in a segmented market through sustaining innovation. While being economically efficient, still being economically efficient. And then today, disruptive innovators are taking that even a step further. So you see the cycle in terms of technology innovation, efficiency innovation, sustaining innovation, disruptive innovation. Okay. Now, while Ford, if you take the history from Ford up until today, took us almost a century to go through that cycle, you see disruptive innovators going through that cycle in a matter of years or even months, right? Okay, so it takes it to the next level. The best way to visualize that is to see what the effect is on the business landscape, right? In this case, in this slide, the business landscape is depicted or visualized as a fitness landscape. Yeah, so it's a landscape where the height is an indication of your fitness for purpose, your business fitness, okay? So if you take the example of Ford, so the single peak landscape there, it's a Mount Fuji landscape. It's very typical for a commodity market, right? In a commodity market, your business fitness is determined by, any idea? Yeah? Your productivity, your economic efficiency, right? It's really determined by your economic efficiency, and it's a market where the winner takes it all, right? You typically have one market leader. So it's a single-peaked Mount Fuji business landscape, fitness landscape. Okay. So Toyota is operating much more in a type of an alpine landscape. It's a more rugged landscape. Why? Because it's a segmented market, right? So you have different peaks and different valleys, crooks, nooks and crannies in the landscape, because it's a segmented market. You might say that there's mist between the mountains, right? So you can't see too far. Yeah? So it's hard to see whether you're on a high peak or just on a peak below the really high peak. Yeah? And that there's poisonous gas in the valleys, so that if you descend too low, your organization gets sick and might even die. Yeah? Okay? So today, with disruptive innovation, what you see is the landscape is becoming more dynamic. It's becoming a dancing landscape. Yeah? What today is a peak, you might find yourself at a peak in the landscape, and tomorrow suddenly that peak is completely gone and it's turned into a deep canyon, for example. Sometimes it's called the Kodak moment, right? Yeah. Okay. So moving around in this dancing landscape, surviving in the dancing landscape requires a new management discipline, right? So it's a new management discipline that I talked about. It's the management discipline of disruptive innovation, of corporate entrepreneurship, agile entrepreneurship. Yeah. So it requires being good at both exploitation, yeah, quickly moving to a mountaintop in the landscape, quickly improving your efficiency, your economic efficiency, as well as exploration. Yeah? Being able to have different positions in the landscape so that if your peak collapses, you at least have alternatives. Okay. Exploitation strategies are pretty well known, right? So at their extreme, they're just hill climbing optimization strategies. They're pretty well-known strategies, right? It's about standard operating procedures, performance management, KPIs, continuous improvement. Yeah? At the core, you find Deming's PDCA cycle, Deming's Plan-Do-Check-Act cycle, okay, which is kind of a hill climbing activity. Exploration strategies are less well known, but they're becoming much more known today, right? Lean startup and stuff like that. Okay. So in this case, it's about creating options, creating probes, like sending out scouts in an unfamiliar terrain, making sure that you have different options in your landscape so that you can capitalize on rising mountains if they suddenly rise, right? If certain market opportunities rise, that you're there, and making sure that you have alternatives if your mountain collapses, to stay in the metaphor. Okay. At the core, you'll find the OODA loop. Yeah. Who's familiar with the OODA loop? Yeah. Okay. So I might expect that not everybody is familiar with the OODA loop. It's about observation, orientation, and deciding in your landscape. So it's really about scouting in your dancing landscape. The little book that is on the slide, Chet Richards' book, is a good reference there as an introduction. So this is where the paradigm cracking change really hits the most, in the sense that in terms of dancing landscape, in terms of this new business landscape that we're finding ourselves in, it's not just about going from exploitation to exploration, yeah? But it's about going from exploitation to both exploitation and exploration. Yeah? It's about being able to do both things well at the same time. Yeah? So we cannot just take a flight into a pure exploration strategy, because we still need to be able to scale our businesses, our new businesses very, very well, for example. Yeah. So it requires a level of ambidexterity, yeah, that many organizations feel feel challenged to develop that. Yeah. So it requires what is sometimes called corporate entrepreneurship or agile entrepreneurship in terms of being able to manage those two types of strategies at the same time. John Kotter, in his book Accelerate, calls it a dual operating system. Yeah, I think that's a good name for it. Yeah. So it's really about having a dual operating system in your organization. That is really the paradigm cracking change that we are talking about. Yeah. Building this dual operating system in your organization. Okay. So this is the second part. That is what Discovery Kanban is all about. It's about the change, and not just a change in terms of a change of getting better at exploitation. It's a change of getting better at both exploitation and exploration at the same time. So just like Kanban, just like the Kanban method, that takes an evolutionary approach to change. Yeah? Discovery Kanban also takes an evolutionary approach to deal with that paradigm cracking change. Yeah? So it's a step-by-step approach. It's an evolutionary approach. Let me give an example. This is an example in the context of a large business transformation in a large organization. I've taken this example because it's exactly these large transformation programs that organizations put in place to get out of a monkey trap or to prepare themselves for a new challenge, right? But it's also these types of programs that often fail. Yeah, so that's why I think it's a good example. And at the same time, you will see that the Kanban system is really the Discovery Kanban is really a simple Discovery Kanban in this case. Yeah. So the case here is a large program in the context of a reformation, really a business reformation of a pan-European organization. So it's a large business transformation program, so it's not just about delivering an IS system. Yeah? It's about delivering an IS system and a business change at the same time. Yeah? So it requires a certain level of entrepreneurship, agility of the program management team in the sense that it's not just about delivering systems, it is about coping with all the uncertainties, the risks, the opportunities that present themselves while doing the change. Yeah. So that's why it requires quite some collaboration between the program, the business side, IT, and the supply side, because suppliers also play an important role in this program. So the visualization, the Kanban board is like the dual operating system. It's a double operating system Kanban board. It's really targeted at the program management team. Yeah. In the sense that we have other Kanban boards that the internal development team uses. We don't have actually a view on what the supplier does. So we don't know whether how they are operating their development. We do, but it's not our focus. So here the Kanban board is really targeted at the work of the program management team. And so the program management team is really representatives of the business, IS, and the suppliers. Okay? So what is visualized on this program management Kanban board? It's on the one hand, on the left side for you. Yeah? So on the UDA side, it's the things that require observation and decision by the program management team. So it's the risks and opportunities that present themselves to the program management team. It's the issues and the options that they have, that they are confronted with. Yeah. So those are the items that require active observation or at least active elicitation by the program management team. Okay. On the right-hand side, we see the items that require certain commitment from the program management team. It's actions, the countermeasures. It's much like the Kaizen board that Pavel showed in the previous presentation. Yeah. So the process that is represented on the Kanban board is a dual operating system. Yeah? It's on the one hand an observation orientation decide act cycle. Yeah? For dealing with those things that require observation by the program management team, risks, options, opportunities. And on the other hand, you have more of an execution cycle, plan, do, check, act. Yeah. And obviously those two are linked to each other in the sense that any actions that are executed may lead to new observations. They may need to lead to new risks and issues on the one hand, and on the other hand, risks, issues may require action that need to be planned. Okay. The visualization helps us to balance the way the program management team operates, in the sense that, for example, if we see too many issue tickets, this is an indication. This can be an indication that the program management team is too much in a firefighting mode. Yeah? So they're working too much behind the facts, reactively. Yeah? And we need to do something about it. If we don't see any blue tickets, no mention of opportunities or options, then the question here is, does this program only have a downside? Doesn't the program management team see opportunities to create a better upside in our program? Okay, and so again, we need to do something. About it. Okay. Purpose of this is to create a new dynamic in the program management team. Yeah. So a new dynamic in terms of moving from a reactive type of feedback way of working towards a more proactive feed-forward type of working. Yeah? So a way of working where you respond to external events, and it's mainly responding to external events, towards a way where you actually are creating the conditions for the external events yourself. Yeah? So it's really a change towards a more entrepreneurial style in the program management team. So that's one example. Another example is a more elaborate example of a discovery Kanban board that we introduced in a software product company. In this case, the challenge is a challenge of renewal of the flagship product, yeah? While at the same time maintaining the delivery of in the current markets, yeah? The delivery of the existing product in the current markets. Yeah? So again, it requires a level of agile entrepreneurship in terms of managing that balance between renewal and maintaining the existing product. Okay. The reason why I present this example is because it's a good illustration of how Discovery Kanban actually fosters a combination of Kanban and Lean Startup principles. Yeah? So that how you combine them through visualization. So the visualization here is really geared at the product management team. Yeah? So again, we have other Kanban boards that are geared towards development, the development teams. In this case, it really focuses on the collaboration between the product management team and the development management team, and also to a certain extent support and sales and support. Okay. What is shown here is features in their different stages of the innovation cycle. Okay, so it's really a visualization of the options and commitments that the team is taking in terms of what are we going to develop, yeah, according to the stages in the innovation cycle. Okay. So again, we have 2 times 2 types of items. Yeah? We've got the items that are more on the right side, which is more the explorative side. So those are differentiators and delighters. And with differentiators, I really mean real differentiators, not the false differentiators that I don't know whom some of the other speakers talked about. Yeah, Dan North, I think, yeah. So real differentiators, features that are targeted at new markets, new customers, new customers or customer jobs. Yeah. So those are the differentiators, and the delighters are delighters that are targeted at existing customers. Yeah, to create goodwill with your existing customer base. Okay. So these are the items. In the linear representation, they're far removed from each other, but in the innovation cycle, they're very close to each other. They're very close to each other because they both require a level of experimentation, exploration. Yeah? They require, both the delighters and differentiators require a validated learning loop. Yeah? We do a minimal viable product on them, and then we validate the response and then learn from that. So it's a learning loop. Okay? While table stakes and enablers are more a matter of plain execution. Okay? They really need to, it's a commitment. Yeah? They really need to be executed. So the process, again, it's a dual looped process. Yeah? On the one hand, we have a build, measure, learn process. Yeah? So it's a validated learning process, mainly targeted for delighters and differentiators, yeah? Differentiator features. Yeah? On the one hand. On the other hand, we have a plan, execute, verify process that is visualized on the board, which is about just those features that really are committed to be delivered. So it's mainly focused at table stakes and enablers. Again, the purpose of, or the visualization helps us to manage the balance. Yeah? In this case, to manage the balance between our different levels of innovation in the product. To manage the balance between exploration in terms of delighters and differentiators, and actual delivery in terms of table stakes and enablers. Okay. In terms of collaboration, collaborative improvement, while from an outside view, it might be very trivial to say that, okay, in this situation, you need to implement a certain combination of Kanban and Lean startup principles. For that organization, developing that capability is really a paradigm cracking change. Yeah? So, and that's what we're engendering with catalyzing with the Discovery Kanban, is to make a change where the organization is using both Kanban and Lean startup principles to move forward in their product development. So this is the two part of my presentation in terms of why Discovery Kanban. Well, essentially because organizations are confronted with paradigm cracking change, and especially with a change where they need to develop both exploitation as well as exploration capabilities at the same time. They need to develop a dual operating system. They need to develop this to deliver large transformations, be it large business transformations or large product transformations. Yeah. And that change is a paradigm cracking change, so it's not an easy change. And so what Discovery Kanban is about is to catalyze that change through visualization, through managing the balance, I haven't talked a lot about the how part. There's a website that I'm putting up where you can grab the templates that are on the slides, and then it's a good way to experiment with that. There's two people I want to especially thank in terms of preparing this presentation. That on the one hand, it's Sean Murphy, and on the other hand, it's my partner, Elliot Verkammen. With that, I can take questions, I think.
Yes, for 10 minutes.
Ah, I talk too fast. I talk too fast. Andy.
Okay. So, do you have an idea of the sort of sweet spot in terms of the size of organisations that you're talking about? So, as in a very small startup, is that what it's about, the startup concept, or is it where you've got multiple products, wide?
Yeah.
Are people willing to take up this kind of approach in those large organisations?
Yeah. So both examples. So the first example is taking place in a pan-European organization. So it's a large organization. It's a large organization, but the number of people that we're targeting is really the program management team. So the number of people that we're targeting is a limited number of people, but
so they're choosing between products or choosing features to go into a single product.
They are managing a large business transformation. So it's not just about choosing the features that go into the product, because that's the easy part for them, so to speak. Yeah, it's really about managing the change in the business. Okay, and finding the opportunities in there, finding the risks in there. Yeah, so it's not just this. In the first case, it's not just about the product development part. Is not the challenging part. It's the business transformation that is the challenging part. That's where the uncertainty comes from. Yeah. To give an example, I was working on a baseline schedule. Sorry for that. With the program manager, and while we were trying to baseline that schedule, yeah, the program manager got a call saying priorities have changed, right? So that's the type of environment that you're in. Okay, so it needs quite some dynamic in the program management team to cope with that. Yeah. Mike.
Just in terms of where it's used, I'm working on one of the government's digital repertoire projects, and we have separate calls for delivery, for customer exploration, and for organisational challenges. And we very much think of the developments being hypothesis driven, and we are generating options to get around some of our organisational challenges. But it's not as well developed as your multiplayer. But even in something as conservative as a government project, it does happen.
Yes, indeed. And part of what we've been doing is we had multiple boards, like you're explaining. Part of what we've been doing is trying to consolidate that in a couple of boards that really are the core of managing the program. Yeah. Okay.
Quick clarifying question. Back when you had fitness landscapes and hill climbing versus scouting, is the scouting OODA strategy in the alpine landscape suitable for the dancing landscape as well?
Yeah. So I represented in the rugged landscape, in the alpine landscape, because it's pretty hard to keep keep the landscape dancing on my screen and then have pointers into it. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Say that this model really only applies to companies that are already operating, or would you be able to use this discovery system, let's say, if you were looking to start a business and maybe an organization, it's trying to explore the market and what's available?
Yeah. So I'm eating my own dog food, right? So I'm eating my own dog food, and so I have my own discovery Kanban. I keep it simple. So I'm keeping it simple to the level of the first simple discovery Kanban. It allows me to get people involved, to participate, and for me to focus on, create focus in what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay.
So the dancing landscape that you talked about, so it's more of disruptive innovation.
Yeah.
Do you think there is a role for the user experience, or rather the user research or customer understanding to help you get better to the product or your process?
Yeah. So part of what we're managing on the second Kanban board, yeah, is both differentiators, which at that point it's really about exploring new customer opportunities, yeah, but also delighters, which is about creating goodwill with your existing customer base, and so your user experience would be more, I assume, would be more on the delighter side. So you would be managing that through your delighter features. Yeah. So I do think there's a place, but there's a certain order to it in terms of you need to respect to a certain extent your innovation cycle in terms of don't start working on your user experience if you don't have identified a good customer opportunity, of course. Yeah. Okay.
So it's always that easy to kind of segment stuff like innovation.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Is it always that easy to kind of take some like innovation and segment it like business as usual? Or isn't some of that stuff sometimes quite ethereal and it's difficult to kind of put through some particular model like it?
So in both cases, it took us a couple of iterations, yeah, to come to what I would call a solid discovery Kanban board. Yeah. So it's in both cases it was not one-off. Yeah. It took us a couple of iterations, and again we started with in both cases we started with the process as it was going on in the organization. Yeah. Start where you are now, and then iterate it, and then and I admit that both boards are a little bit of an abstraction of the real boards that are there in practice. Yeah. So it does require a couple of iterations. Yeah. I don't know whether that answers your questions, but
Yeah, I guess I've got sort of
okay.
additional ones. So people working from that model, you're actually using that in practice. How do they kind of want to it? How do they find it?
Yeah, I can't generalize from the experiences. For example, in the first case, the large business transformation case, obviously there were instruments in the organization to deal with some of the items. So in this case, the organization PDCA was pretty well institutionalized. Yeah? So people were very familiar with PDCA, but this was all managed through Excel spreadsheets. Okay? Now, that doesn't engender a good collaborative spirit around that. On the other hand, there was an issue, a risk management system in the organization. And again, that was managed through a very formal process. Yeah? Again, that doesn't foster a very collaborative spirit. So introducing the Discovery Kanban there got very positive feedback in terms of reducing the management overhead. Having more of a constructive way of dealing with both PDCA and risk and issue management. Yeah. So in that case, it was the reception was really a kind of a type of reception. Yeah. 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 Okay.